Mobilmachung gegen die Sowjetunion.
Arbeiter bauen, nehmt die Gewehre zur Hand. Zerschlagt die faschistischen Räuberheere, setzt alle Herzen in Brand.
Guten Tag, comrades. Now I want to talk about Libya as an add-on to my last video, just to give an example of U.S. imperialism. So, Libya went from one of the poorest nations in Africa to one of the richest, well, the richest. They planned to turn the Sahara green, so they had a massive irrigation system from the many aquifers that presided under the Saharan sands. They nationalized the oil and used that money to fund college, healthcare, and to give new families, I think, $200,000 to help support themselves. Literacy went up from almost none to something like 27% to 97% within a matter of a few years because of Gaddafi. And women's rights were also increased as compared to what they used to be before Gaddafi. They also wanted to make an African Union and to do the gold, get rid of the US dollar, so they want to do a gold standard and make an Pan-African currency. And they want Africa to unite against imperialism so they can lift themselves out of poverty. And they supported the Irish liberation struggle and the Palestinian liberation struggle. Then guess what happened? They called Gaddafi a butcher, a dictator, everything in the US playbook to demonize him. Liberals got behind this, anarchists got behind this, Trotskyists and even some Marxist-Leninists got behind this because the justification was that he was a national bourgeoisie. So they decided to drop bombs on Libya and totally destroy the country. Now, Libya is a hellhole. Dark-skinned Africans, Bantu Africans, are enslaved in Libya. They're sold as slaves. People are fleeing from Libya to go to Europe and cross the Mediterranean on flabby and rickety boats, like blow-up boats. The ones that are on the side of ships are not even real boats. They're just like floaties. They tried to cross the Mediterranean so they could get into Italy and into Germany because their country was destroyed. Not to mention the millions of deaths due to the bombing, just like Iraq. Also, the irrigation system was destroyed. Farmers had a harder time now. Under Gaddafi, he gave a bunch of farmers land, but during the bombings, all that land and irrigation got destroyed. Healthcare is not free anymore. It's hard to even find hospitals because they were bombed. In Gaddafi's time, if they couldn't send you to a university, they would send you out to another country like China so you could get your education, then come back and become a doctor or somebody that benefits society. Now that program doesn't exist any longer because Syria got taken over by radical extremists that were funded and supported by the USA. Libya is hell now, like there's nothing there. Women's rights have been thrown down the drain now that the radicals took over, the radical Islamists, which were supported by the US. Also, another example, let's talk about the DPRK and Vietnam. The DPRK and Vietnam, after they freed themselves after, in North Korea's case, freed itself from Japanese liberation, both countries had an election, and in North Korea, I should say at the time, Korea voted for Kim Il-sung. Kim Il-sung was a anti-Japan was a North Korean. He was a Korean liberation leader who fought against the Japanese in an anti-Japanese campaign because the Japanese were colonizing Korea. So people loved him. He was popular. He led the campaign against the Japanese who were invading the nation. And so they voted for him. As soon as that happened, the US decided to interfere and split Korea in half. That's how the Korean War started. North Korea wanted half of its country back, which the US stole. They already just fought a war, freeing themselves, and they didn't want to be captured again. So they attacked the South. They invaded the South. Well, shouldn't even say invaded. They recaptured the South. But the US and the UN got help from the UN and pushed them back north. Now, during the war, US pilots said there was nothing left to bomb. They bombed the place so extensively that the chemicals from the bombs seeped into the soil, and now that makes agriculture harder to practice in North Korea. And North Korea is 90% mountainous. They only have 10% of good land usable for agriculture, and that got bombed to smithereens. They were told to bomb anything over 2 stories high, and that's what happened. There were millions of deaths, unnecessary deaths, over the US claiming South Korea as theirs. It's fucking ridiculous. Same thing with Vietnam. Vietnam elected Ho Chi Minh, the anti-French freedom fighter, fighting against the French colonization of Vietnam. Then they had an election. He was about to get elected. They saw how popular he was, so the US decided to take South Vietnam to fight against the communists. And we all know how that went. My Lai Massacre, literally the death of an entire village with no remorse. The rapes, the killings, the murders, the dictatorship that was held up in the South. They used women as prostitutes for American GIs there. It's fucking disgusting. All for profit, all for labor, which is what the US needs to keep its empire running. But in this case, the reclaiming of Vietnam from the US was successful. Now Vietnam is a united country. But the devastation from the war with the French and the US combined, and the war debts that were accumulated were so great that Vietnam couldn't even do its planned economy like they wished to. And now Vietnam is a poor country and had to go the route of China, which is questionable for China to do in the first place. This is imperialism. Do not fall for it.
Links! Links!